The Fall of Linda, a suburban tyranny unraveled. The Crestwood Estates clubhouse was a battlefield of whispers and smirks on a crisp October morning. Linda Harper, once the unchallenged queen of the Homeowners Association, sat defeated in a folding chair, her face flushed with rage. Her pristine Lexus SUV, now clamped between two police cruisers, gleamed mockingly in the parking lot. Neighbors, once cowed by her iron rule, exchanged knowing glances. Linda's reign had crumbled, and I, Tom Reynolds, stood quietly by a responding officer, my secret weapon still unknown to her. I was the son of the town's police chief. 3 weeks earlier, Linda strutted through Crestwood like a suburban monarch. Her HOA bylaws were gospel, and she wielded them like a scepter. She'd slap violation notices on mailboxes for being too shiny or fine neighbors for unapproved garden gnomes. Her obsession with control was almost comical until it wasn't. When she started parking her Lexus across my driveway, blocking access to my garage, the war began. I'd moved to Crestwood to care for my father, Jack Reynolds, the retired police chief recovering from hip surgery. Linda didn't know me, but she'd soon wish she had. It started innocently enough. I left a polite note on her windshield. "Hi, your car's blocking my driveway. Please move it. Thanks." By morning, a $100 HOA fine arrived, accusing me of defacing leadership property. Linda had classified my post-it note as vandalism under a rule she'd snuck into the bylaws during a late-night board meeting. When I laughed it off, I didn't realize she'd installed a motion-activated camera across from my house. She used grainy footage of me walking with a coffee mug to claim I'd menaced her vehicle. At the HOA hearing, she played the clip like a prosecutor in a bad crime drama, pointing at my yawn as evidence of hostile intent. It was absurd, but her power was real. Neighbors sat silently, afraid to cross her. That's when I called my dad, not to pull strings, but to understand what I was up against. He dug into Linda's history and found a web of deceit. She wasn't just HOA president. She was pocketing administrative fees, backdating budgets, and rewriting rules to stay in power indefinitely. The HOA accountant, a nervous man named Carl, met me in a grocery store parking lot. "She made me fudge 7 budgets," he whispered. "Called it creative accounting. I think she's stealing." Linda's antics escalated. She showed up at my house, claiming my lawn had unauthorized soil. When I asked what soil was allowed, she snapped, "Premium HOA-approved mulch blend." She emailed the neighborhood, accusing me of being a rogue resident with ties to disruptive ideologies. That's when I parked my truck to block her Lexus legally, on my property. She exploded, screaming like a reality TV star and dialing 911. "He's threatening me with a pickup," she shrieked. "He's got police connections, and I'm unsafe." The officers arrived, and I handed over my ID. The lead cop grinned. "Hey, Tom, how's Jack doing? Tell him we owe him that fishing trip." Linda's jaw dropped. "You're with the police?" she stammered. I smiled. "No, I'm the police chief's son." For the first time, she was speechless. 3 days later, Linda was ousted in an emergency HOA vote. Her fraudulent spending was exposed, her cameras subpoenaed, and the newsletter replaced her smug photo with a blank square, position vacant. But this was just the spark. What followed was a wildfire of petty tyranny. Linda didn't slink away. The next morning, yellow citations plastered my house. Excessive lawn confidence, suspiciously clean windows, and my favorite, vehicle appears emotionally aggressive. I called the HOA hotline her cell phone and got a voicemail. "This is Linda. I'm very busy. Board members first, others eventually." Then my Amazon packages vanished. A new rule, posted at the clubhouse, declared non-paying members' parcels held for inspection. Linda had falsely listed me as delinquent. She went after my golden retriever, Max, claiming his bark was antagonistic and violated emotional audio pollution bylaws. I pointed out Max was a certified therapy dog who'd spent the previous day napping with my dad. Linda sneered. "If your dog's so well-behaved, maybe it can explain why you ignore rules." She printed flyers with my face from her camera, labeled "Non-Compliant Neighbor at Large." The breaking point came at my backyard barbecue. Just hot dogs and music, nothing wild. At 8:45 p.m., the power cut out. I thought it was a fluke until I saw Linda with a flashlight, smugly telling a neighbor, Some people shouldn't use unauthorized grills. Security footage later showed her unscrewing the utility box fuse, wearing night vision goggles like a discount spy. I started compiling evidence. Fake fines, invented rules, emails signed, in HOA Unity, Linda. Carl revealed her favorite scam charging for morale enhancement and patriotic landscaping, like thorny bushes around her yard to deter trespassers. When I asked who trespassed, she said, "A kid stared at my roses last spring." Linda's reign of terror in Crestwood Estates wasn't just a nuisance site, it was a calculated empire built on fear and fraud. Her night vision goggle stunt at my barbecue convinced me this wasn't about petty fines anymore. She was a suburban dictator, and I wasn't going to let her ruin the neighborhood my dad had called home for decades. But taking her down required more than outrage. It needed a plan, allies, and evidence that could withstand her wrath. I started with Carl, the HOA accountant who'd whispered about Linda's creative accounting in the parking lot. He was a jittery guy, always glancing over his shoulder, but he had a conscience. Over coffee at a diner outside town, he handed me a thumb drive. "I shouldn't have this," he muttered. She made me copy every HOA budget onto a Linda-only version and delete the originals. I kept backups. Back home, I opened the files with my dad, who leaned back in his recliner, sipping tea. The numbers were staggering. Linda had created dummy expenses to mask personal spending. $1,500 for decorative security upgrades, a koi pond in her backyard, $700 for emergency alert infrastructure, an air horn for her golf cart, and $2,000 for neighborhood morale, a spa weekend labeled HOA Leadership Recovery. She'd even applied for federal grants, claiming Crestwood was running a sustainability initiative. In reality, she bought 40 solar-powered garden gnomes and listed them as public art installations. There were invoices for beautification that traced to Botox appointments and emails to vendors demanding, "Round up the bill and add a wine basket." My dad whistled. "This isn't just petty theft, Tom. It's fraud." He advised me to keep digging, but stay quiet. Linda was slippery, and she'd smell a fight coming. Next, I reached out to Ellen, a retired schoolteacher who'd been fined for suspicious smiling near my house. Over tea in her cozy living room, she dropped another bombshell. During the pandemic, Linda had exploited an emergency clause in the HOA charter to suspend elections. She'd held a virtual meeting, a Zoom video of herself nodding 3 times, and declared it a unanimous vote to extend her presidency indefinitely. She mailed the minutes with a cookie recipe, Ellen said, shaking her head. We were too distracted to notice. Linda's surveillance obsession was even worse. She'd installed 18 cameras across Crestwood, disguised as birdhouses or hidden in fake rocks, all linked to her personal app. She tracked everything: walking speeds, dog poop locations, even who lingered near her prized azaleas. Carl found receipts for wildlife observation devices and a budget line for deer deterrence that funded sprinklers aimed at Ellen's porch. The smoking gun came when we filed a public records request for HOA complaint forms. 90% were written by Linda, using different handwriting styles and fake names like Mrs. Clara Wentworth, complaining about hostile lawn ornaments, or Mr. Ed Thornton, warning of subversive mailbox designs. She'd created email accounts for these ghosts, registering domains like crestwoodvigilance.org. Carl admitted she called them her backup voters. It was clear Linda wasn't just a control freak. She'd built a miniature autocracy, using fake residents, hidden cameras, and stolen funds to rule unchallenged. I called my dad again. "Get everything organized," he said, his voice steady. "Don't confront her yet. Let the system do its work." I rallied the troops. Ellen brought her legal pad, Carl his spreadsheets, and Mike, a neighbor who'd been fined for non-regulation birdseed, brought cookies and a timeline of Linda's abuses dubbed the Reign of Chaos. We met in my garage, disguised as a gardening club, to avoid Linda's cameras. Our goal wasn't just to expose her, it was to flip the HOA from the inside. The first crack in Linda's armor came when she overplayed her hand. After my truck blocked her Lexus, she launched a campaign of vengeance. She fined anyone who waved at me, calling it collusion. Ellen got a warning for engaging in disruptive friendliness. Linda's nephew, Brandon, an unemployed lifestyle coach who'd once sold cryptocurrency-themed t-shirts, became her enforcer. Wearing a reflective vest, he patrolled yards with a clipboard, noting unharmonious grass blades or judgmental petunias. They'd show up at 7 a.m., filming flower beds with selfie sticks. Linda turned the HOA newsletter into her personal propaganda machine. Once a bland pamphlet with potluck schedules, it now featured headlines like, "Why Some Residents Reject Order," and "Leadership Explained, Linda's Vision for Unity." She added an Ask Linda column, answering questions she clearly wrote herself. One read, "How do you handle men who block your car and defy community law?" Her response, with grace, strength, and a firm understanding of 911 protocols. My dad, watching from his recliner, chuckled. She's got the fury of a rejected prom queen and the tactics of a warlord. But his eyes were serious. Linda had turned Crestwood into a pressure cooker of passive-aggressive rules. The breaking point came with her Liberty Parade, a mandatory march around the block to show unity against disorder. She demanded red, white, and blue attire. No logos unless they honor veterans. I wasn't invited. Instead, she posted Brandon and his crypto buddies as guards outside my house. When I stepped out to grab my mail, one blew a whistle and yelled, "We've got movement." That was it. I compiled a 40-page dossier, fake fines, doctored budgets, witness statements, and emails from former board members Linda had bullied into quitting. Ellen contacted a retired judge who'd once lived in Crestwood. Carl agreed to testify anonymously. We submitted our evidence to the county, the state HOA board, and set a trap for Linda's next move. She announced an emergency HOA meeting to address non-compliance trends, demanding mandatory attendance. She didn't know the county had approved our plan, sending a regulator to pose as a guest. At the meeting, Linda stood at her podium, clicker in hand, ranting about morale under siege. I raised my hand. "Point of order. You're not on the speaking list," she snapped. "Actually," Ellen said, holding up a county-stamped letter, "he is." I turned on a projector. "This is a financial audit of your presidency, starting with your $4,000 claim for patriotic planters, which were roses delivered to your sister's anniversary party." The room gasped, then laughed. We showed emails, played clips, and read aloud her boast. "I run this place like a cruise ship. No one needs to know the steering." Linda's face turned crimson. The county rep stood. "Linda Harper, you're suspended pending investigation for fraud, misuse of funds, and impersonating HOA members." She screamed, "This is a witch hunt." Ellen quipped, "Wrong century, Linda." The room turned against her. Even her loyalists, like Mrs. Grayson, the neighborhood's rosebush expert, looked away. The Crestwood Estates clubhouse buzzed with a mix of shock and glee as Linda Harper's empire crumbled. Her suspension as HOA president wasn't just a bureaucratic slop hit, was a public execution of her carefully curated persona. But Linda, ever the suburban Machiavelli, didn't go quietly. As the county regulator confiscated her laptop and pink USB drive her so-called honor archive of blackmail footage, she stood at the podium, clutching her engraved presidential badge like a fallen general. "This is a coup," she declared, waving the USB. "This holds secrets from every home in Crestwood. Come for me, and I expose everyone." The room froze. Carl, the accountant, let out a nervous squeak. Brandon, Linda's nephew, gasped dramatically. Ellen, with the steely calm of a retired teacher who'd faced down decades of unruly kids, narrowed her eyes. Linda wasn't just a tyrant she'd been hoarding leverage like a Cold War spy master. She played her trump card, projecting footage on the clubhouse screen. Ellen tossing a plastic flamingo into her garage, muttering, "This HOA can shove it." Mike cursing after spilling fertilizer, yelling, "Linda, if you find me for dirt again." Even Carl, crying in his car, mouthing, "I need a new job." She called it her community accountability record. Gasps turned to growls. Neighbors, once paralyzed by her fines, now looked ready to storm the podium. Linda pointed at me, Tom Reynolds. "This all started because this man blocked my car, threatened me, and dodged justice because he's the police chief's spoiled son." I stepped forward, keeping my voice even. "I blocked your car after you parked across my driveway 4 times in a week. You called 911, claiming I was armed. You didn't know I was Jack Reynolds' son, but that shouldn't matter. What matters is you abused emergency services, falsified reports, and now you're blackmailing this neighborhood with illegal footage. The regulator stood. We'll take that laptop and USB now. Linda clutched her purse. Not without a warrant. He pulled one from his folder, signed hours earlier. The silence was deafening. As officers bagged her devices, Linda screeched, "You'll all regret this. I'll sue for defamation, emotional damages, retaliation." The regulator, unfazed, replied, "Take it up with the judge, maybe the one you fined for his mailbox." The room erupted in laughter. Judge Larson, a Crestwood resident, had once been cited by Linda for a non-compliant brass mailbox shaped like a trout. Linda's smirk faltered. Brandon ditched his reflective vest and slipped out like a kid abandoning a losing game. Mrs. Grayson, Linda's staunchest ally, muttered, "I'm done with the shrub committee. This isn't what I signed up for." As officers escorted Linda out, she hissed, "This neighborhood deserves me. I brought order." Ellen chirped, "The kind you find in dystopias and cults." But I held my applause. Linda wasn't done. 3 days later, a certified letter landed on my doorstep. She was suing me personally for $80,000, claiming defamation, emotional trauma, and loss of professional dignity due to a coordinated civic lynching. Her handwritten complaint read like a fever dream, citing neighborhood betrayal and character assassination via mob mentality. She attached a spa receipt she could no longer enjoy and a blurry photo of me smiling, labeled malicious glee. I showed it to my dad. He sipped his tea and said, "She just poked a beehive with a fork." We didn't laugh it off, though. I hired Gloria Martinez, a former prosecutor and family friend who dealt with HOA despots before. "This isn't a lawsuit," Gloria said, flipping through Linda's filing. "It's a tantrum in Times New Roman." She filed a countersuit for malicious prosecution and harassment within 24 hours. Linda upped the ante. She held an emergency unity rally in her driveway, complete with a podium, folding chairs, and a banner reading "Truth Shall Prevail." She ranted about a conspiracy to silence a strong female leader, handing out pamphlets with misquoted Eleanor Roosevelt lines and warnings like, "Linda today, you tomorrow." On court day, she arrived in a navy blazer and pearls, clutching a clipboard. Brandon, her paralegal, wore sunglasses indoors and chewed gum like a B-movie henchman. Judge Larson presided, the same man Linda had fined over his mailbox. Her confidence cracked. Gloria stood. "Your Honor, this suit is meritless, designed to harass. We have footage from the HOA meeting where Ms. Harper threatened blackmail unless reinstated." Linda leapt up. "That was recorded without consent." Larson raised an eyebrow. "It was a public meeting. Admissible." Gloria continued, presenting 35 affidavits from neighbors detailing Linda's harassment and fraud, plus evidence of financial misconduct under county investigation. Linda shrieked, "Suppress it all. This is a vendetta. They want anarchy." Larson removed his glasses. "Ms. Harper, ever heard of projection?" Her mouth opened, then closed. Then came the twist. Carl stood in the back row, trembling. "Your Honor, I forgot something." Linda had a legacy fund slush account. She said it was for retirement parties, but she wired money to her cousin's account. He handed over bank records and an email where Linda wrote, "I'll move to Arizona when this place implodes, with my savings intact." The courtroom went silent. Linda's face cycled through denial, rage, and fake innocence. "Arizona's a metaphor for peace," she stammered. Larson had enough. He dismissed her lawsuit, ordered her to pay my legal fees, and referred her financial records to the district attorney. Linda called him biased over mailbox trauma and was escorted out after hurling her clipboard into a trash can. Outside, local reporters swarmed. The next day's headline, "HOA Tyrant Falls, Blames Arizona." Linda posted online as True Patriot 22, claiming she was a victim of suburban socialists. No one cared. Even Mrs. Grayson unfollowed her. The HOA apologized publicly and scheduled a new election. Ellen won, promising transparency. Linda's Lexus was repossessed at 6 a.m. on a Sunday, filmed by dog walkers. Someone added ukulele music and posted it to TikTok as Linda's timeout. It hit 400,000 views. Crestwood began to heal. Ellen started a community garden on land Linda had called a wildlife hazard. Mike hosted movie nights, projecting Pixar films on his garage. Kids drew chalk murals, unafraid of art violation fines. Linda, though, stayed. Her driveway, once her throne, sat empty. Her President Emeritus plaque was uprooted. Neighbors held block parties she wasn't invited to. Max, my golden retriever, became the HOA's unofficial mascot, his face on t-shirts reading "Bark Free, Live Free." But Linda's downfall wasn't just financial, it was social. The community, fractured by her rules, bonded over her defeat. She watched from her blinds, a sidelined villain in her own story. Crestwood Estates had tasted freedom, but Linda Harper wasn't the type to fade into obscurity. Her ousting as HOA president, the repossession of her Lexus, and the viral TikTok of her downfall only fueled her resolve. She wasn't just humiliated, she was plotting a comeback, scheming from her pristine, now slightly faded, suburban fortress. For the residents of Crestwood, the battle wasn't over. It was evolving into a test of whether a community could truly outlast a tyrant's grudge. The first sign of Linda's return came subtly, like a weed in a manicured lawn. Flyers appeared on mailboxes, printed in stark black and white with a stock photo of a waving American flag. Signed concerned citizens of Crestwood, they asked, "Are you being silenced? Do you miss true leadership?" The grammar was shaky, the tone aggressive, and a fine print link led to a password-protected Google document. Ellen, now acting HOA chair, spotted the flyer on her morning walk and chuckled. Only one person misspells governance as governance. The email tied to the doc? patriotcrestwood1776@outlook.com. Linda's burner. She'd rebranded herself as Laura Bennett, a grassroots advocate for property rights and traditional landscaping values. Her new blog, Crestwood Rising, praised her own presidency in the third person. Under Linda Harper's leadership, the HOA thrived with order and pride. Her removal has left us vulnerable to chaotic lawn agendas. Gloria, my lawyer, called it narcissistic fanfiction. Linda wasn't just reminiscing, she was recruiting. She slipped coded invitations into mailboxes, tea bags with notes reading, "Let's stir the pot." She targeted new residents, spinning herself as a misunderstood reformer crushed by a vindictive clique. One newbie asked me at the dog park, half laughing, "Are you some HOA undercover cop?" Linda had claimed I was planted by my dad, Jack, to seize control. I shook my head. She's projecting harder than a drive-in theater. Her boldest move was an open town hall at the old gazebo she'd once decked out with fake ivy and cameras. 7 people showed up, 3 confused joggers, Brandon, back from a failed crypto vlog venture, and a couple of curious tenants. Linda, in a blazer and scarf, ranted about HOA progressivism and the decline of disciplined yards. She pitched a new faction, the Crestwood Constitutional Alliance. Ellen, watching from her golf cart, quipped, "This is the most patriotic drivel since she fined me for a 4th of July pinwheel." Linda's real plan was wilder. She filed a petition to create an HOA 2.0, a values-based oversight group, to monitor the existing HOA. Her pitch to the county claimed the current board lacked consequences and moral hedge trimming standards. The county's reply was blunt: "No mechanism exists for a shadow HOA. Please seek professional help." Even Brandon bailed when he realized her Crestwood Rising Patreon had 0 donors. Mrs. Grayson, now painting recycled bottle flamingos with Ellen's art club, sighed, "I just wanted nicer roses, not a coup." The final blow came from an unexpected source. A quiet former board member, Diane, filed an ethics complaint. During Linda's reign, she'd submitted fraudulent zoning requests to funnel community funds into buffer zones that boosted her property value by 12%, while others stagnated. When asked why, Linda had shrugged. "I care more about aesthetics." The ethics board wasn't impressed. They slapped her with a $12,000 restitution order and a 10-year ban from any HOA role in the state. Her appeal, claiming collusion by lawn radicals, was denied spectacularly. The county also froze a grant Linda had applied for under her Laura Bennett alias, meant to fund a neighborhood restoration corps, really just her and Brandon power-washing driveways for TikTok clout. The denial letter read, "Your history suggests governance abuse." In a poetic twist, the HOA repurposed Linda's gaudy oak and gold podium into a compost bin for Ellen's community garden. A plaque read, "Here lies ego. Once fertilizer, now just fertilizer." But Linda's pettiness had one last hurrah. The HOA election was meant to be a celebration of renewal. Ellen called it democracy, garden style. Voting booths sprouted in the clubhouse with snacks and Max, my golden retriever, sporting a voter pup bandana. Candidates ran on platforms like more dog parks or no leaf blowers before 9 a.m. It was wholesome until Linda found a loophole. Barred from running, she recruited a proxy, her cousin Gerald, a drifter from out of town who didn't know HOA from AOL. Gerald filed as a candidate, campaigning in a baggy suit with slogans like "Order over chaos" and "Put the law in lawn." His note cards, clearly written by Linda, pushed for mandatory fence alignment tests. The plan was obvious. Linda would puppeteer Gerald to revive her old bylaws. Crestwood wasn't fooled. Mike, now tech chair, traced Gerald's campaign emails to Linda's IP address. Gloria uncovered donations from Linda's defunct Neighborhood Harmony LLC. Gerald's fatal slip was a text to the neighborhood listserv. "What do I say about shrub quotas?" Followed by, "Oops, wrong thread." Linda doubled down, plastering "Vote Gerald" flyers on dog waste stations and hiring a sign spinner who quit when he realized it wasn't a city election. Ellen ran a clean campaign. Coffee chats, clear policies, and yard signs reading, "Not Gerald." Carl, recovered from his spreadsheet nightmares, tracked every campaign dollar. On election day, neighbors voted with cider in hand, kids handing out stickers. Then someone spotted a QR code on the voting board, linking to a fake site auto-selecting Gerald. The domain? HOA-loyalty.biz, registered by Linda, with ballot misspelled as ballot. Gloria held up the evidence. "This is fraud, not a beta test." The county overseer, looking like he'd aged a decade, voided tainted votes and referred the stunt to the ethics board. Linda claimed Gerald stood for values. Gerald, confused, asked, "What's an HOA again?" The results were brutal. Ellen, 89%. Gerald, 5%, mostly baffled renters. Linda, 0%. She'd written herself in as Laura Bennett, order minister. She tried a concession speech on the clubhouse steps, warning of hedge anarchy, but was escorted off mid-rant by the same officer she'd once called on me. The Crestwood Estates election wasn't just a vote, it was a declaration of independence from Linda Harper's tyranny. With Ellen elected as HOA president by an 89% landslide, the neighborhood exhaled. The clubhouse barbecue that followed was a victory lap. Ribs sizzling, kids chasing Max with voter pup stickers, and a golden trowel presented to Ellen, engraved with "For services to lawn and liberty." Across the street, Linda watched from her blinds, her silhouette a ghost of the dictator she'd once been. As if on cue, a breeze toppled her "Vote Gerald" sign, snapping the arm off her prized garden gnome. The crowd cheered. Crestwood had won, but Linda's story wasn't quite over to leave a legacy, just not the one she'd planned. Linda's final humiliation came at the barbecue. The HOA, now under Ellen's transparent leadership, unveiled a new community lounge called the Freedom Room. A bronze plaque read, "Dedicated to the resilience of neighborhoods everywhere, and in memory of one woman's quest to make gardening a felony." Linda didn't attend the ribbon cutting, but her own camera's now HOA property caught her peering from her window, muttering into a recorder. "They'll beg for structure one day," she hissed, tripping over her broken gnome. It was poetic, but Crestwood wasn't done teaching her a lesson. Linda's house, once the gold standard of HOA compliance, began to betray her. Years of neglecting maintenance while finding others left her siding peeling and her mailbox tilting. Under rules she'd written, homes with visible damage faced $100 weekly fines. With no presidential powers to waive them, she was cited relentlessly. Mike, now a cheerful compliance officer, delivered the first notice with a grin. "Just following your bylaws, Linda." You wrote, "Leadership begins at the lawn line." Remember? Her protests about ongoing injustice fell flat. Community service could reduce the fines, but it meant scrubbing chalk murals off the sidewalk drawings of unicorns by 6-year-olds. A neighbor snapped a photo of Linda with a toothbrush, captioned "Karma's cleanup crew." It went viral. Crestwood didn't evict her. They wanted her to live under her own rules. Ellen put it best, "We don't need her gone. We need her to feel the world she built." The neighborhood flourished in her absence. Ellen's HOA replaced fines with warnings, resolved disputes with coffee chats, and turned the newsletter into a celebration of dog photos and recipes. Mike's Saturday barbecue stand drew crowds, and Max, my golden retriever, was named morale coordinator, his face on mugs sold to fund the community garden. Kids drew chalk, Linda zones on sidewalks, tiptoeing around them like cursed ground, giggling. Linda, meanwhile, clung to relevance like a shipwreck survivor clutching driftwood. She tried hosting a private garden tour of her yard. No one came. Her Crestwood Restoration Alliance fizzled when Brandon, her only member, quit over burnt waffles at their first meeting. Someone hacked her blog, replacing the header with Petty Party, less power, more compost. She posted as True Patriot 22, railing about lawn liberals, but her followers dwindled to bots and Mrs. Grayson's cat, who'd accidentally liked a post. The ultimate blow came quietly. Linda applied to lead the regional HOA council, assuming her notoriety had faded. She used her real name, confident time had erased her red flags. It hadn't. Her file bore a scarlet sticker, high risk for governance abuse. The denial letter was brutal. Past behavior predicts future landscaping tyranny. Her appeal was rejected, barring her from any leadership role, public or private, for a decade. Even the book club banned her after she tried to hijack a discussion with a rant about hedge anarchy. Her house became a monument to irony. The bylaws she'd crafted to punish others now haunted her. Her fence faded, her hydrangeas wilted, and every Friday, a cheerful HOA volunteer left a violation notice in her mailbox. Linda was spotted muttering into her recorder, inspecting sidewalk cracks for evidence of sabotage. "They'll need me again," she'd say to no one. But Crestwood had moved on. A year later, the HOA threw an anniversary picnic, a testament to their rebirth. Food trucks lined the street, a band played, and kids reenacted the QR code scandal with foam fingers and a Gerald mumbling, "What's a shrub?" The night ended with a new garden addition, a marble bench, engraved with "May we never mistake control for community," and, in smaller letters, to Crestwood's residents, past, present, and slightly unhinged. The crowd toasted to resilience, to neighbors who'd become friends, to a community that turned tyranny into triumph. Linda's name became a verb. "Don't Linda your neighbors," parents told bossy kids. Her reign was a cautionary tale, recounted at barbecues like a war story, equal parts horror and hilarity. The community she'd fractured had rebuilt itself stronger, bonded by shared exasperation and a refusal to bow. Ellen's garden thrived, Mike's movie nights packed yards, and Max led dog parades, his bandana a symbol of joy over control. For me, the fight wasn't just about beating Linda, it was about honoring my dad's belief in fairness. Jack, now walking without a cane, joined the picnic, shaking his head at the reenactment. "She was a piece of work," he said, sipping lemonade. "But you all showed her what a real community does." I nodded, watching Max chase a kid's balloon. Crestwood wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Linda's final act was no act at all, just a quiet surrender to irrelevance. Her recorder ran out of batteries, her blog went offline, and her gnome stayed broken. She lived on, a living reminder that power built on fear collapses under truth. Crestwood didn't just survive Linda. It thrived because of her downfall, proving that unity, not control, is the heart of a neighborhood. Thank you for following the saga of Crestwood Estates and Linda Harper's fall. This story isn't just about one woman's overreach, it's about how communities confront abuse and reclaim justice. Linda's tactics, from surveillance to blackmail, raised tough questions about power and fairness in our daily lives. Have you faced a Linda in your neighborhood, workplace, or community? How do you handle those who wield authority like a weapon? And where do you stand on the line between order and oppression? When does enforcing rules become injustice? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Share your stories, take a stand, and let's debate. How should we respond to abuse and unfairness in our lives? Your voice matters, and we'd love to hear it. Subscribe for more tales of justice and community, and let's keep the conversation going.